I have good news. You have inherited a mansion. Pretty exciting, right? Well, let's take a look. Ooh, it's not really what you expected. Well, this is the Selma Mansion. It was once a beautiful property dating back to the early 1800s. But over the years, it was ill-maintained, abused, vandalized, and then finally just abandoned. Well, how do you feel about inheriting this property now? Just looking at these photos, we realize it would require much time, energy, and money to restore it just back to a livable condition. Well, we might even think it's just beyond repair. It can be torn down, right? Well, like the Selma Mansion, we all have inherited an earth that's been ill-maintained, abused, and vandalized. But is this what God had in mind when He created the earth? Let's rewind back to the beginning, about 6,000 years. If you turn with me to Genesis chapter 1, we'll read verse 1. That's Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and desolate, and there was darkness upon the surface of the watery deep. And God's active force was moving about over the surface of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." Then there was light. So Jehovah used His Holy Spirit, His powerful active force, to create our solar system, our planet, the stars, and all the galaxies that make up the universe. According to that scripture we just read, the earth at one point in time was formless and desolate. There were no continents or productive land. But verse 2 highlights one of the most important requirements for a life-sustaining planet. Jehovah provided an abundance of water. If we skim through the rest of chapter 1, there's further detail about the work Jehovah God did to create the earth. He created the day and the night, water, land, vegetation, expanse of the heavens, the sun, the moon, and finally, He also created sea creatures, land creatures, all the flying creatures, and finally He created mankind. So how did Jehovah feel at the end of those 6 creative days? How do you feel about all the effort He put into this? Let's read Genesis chapter 1. We'll go to verse 31. That's Genesis 1:31. After that, God saw everything He had made, and look, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, a 6th day. Yes, it was very good. When Jehovah finished creating the earth, it was a true paradise, not like what we see today. There were rivers running through the Garden of Eden with pure, clean water. There were endless varieties of flowers, shrubs, vegetation, delicious fruits and vegetables, beautiful birds, all types of animals living in peace with one another. This was not a temporary design or plan Jehovah had. He created this beautiful planet as a loving gift for mankind. Psalms 116:15 says, "The heavens belong to Jehovah, but the earth He has given to the sons of man." And when Jehovah gave the earth to the sons of man, He had a wonderful future in mind for them. Jehovah did not create the earth simply for nothing, but He formed it to be inhabited. And as first inhabitants, Adam and Eve had a very important role. That role is described for us in Genesis 1, verse 28. If you turn there with me, Genesis 1:28. Further, God blessed them and said to them, "Become fruitful and become many. Fill the earth and subdue it, and have in subjection the fish of the sea, and the flying creatures of the heavens, and every living creature that is moving on the earth." So Adam and Eve were to fill the earth and subdue it. They were supposed to take care of the things of the earth and take care of the earth and the things in it. So we may look at that word subdue and think of it in a negative way, to control or conquer something. But would God's intention be for man to conquer mankind, or conquer the earth in a negative way? No, definitely not. Think of land that's been untouched for hundreds of years. It may be overrun with vegetation and trees, but with a little help from man, it can be tamed and beautified. So a few other synonyms for that word subdue are tame, temper, quiet, and soften. So together with their offspring, Adam and Eve could have had a beautiful life, caring for the earth, maintaining it forever, the way Jehovah designed it. So how did it all go wrong? How do we go from this beautiful, perfect paradise to the world that we live in today? Well, in one word, rebellion. But what led up to that rebellion? You would think Adam and Eve would be eternally grateful to Jehovah for all they had, everything Jehovah created for them. They were able to enjoy the world to its full with very little restriction. But Jehovah did ask one thing from them. They were not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. Well, why not? There was nothing extraordinary about the tree itself or the fruit in it, but it's what the tree symbolized, and that is God's privilege and His alone to determine what is good and what is bad. Adam and Eve had everything they could possibly want in the Garden of Eden, but what irreversible decision did they make? Let's see that at Genesis chapter 3, verse 6. It's Genesis 3, 6. Consequently, the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was something desirable to the eyes. Yes, the tree was pleasing to look at. So she began taking of its fruit and eating it. Afterward, she also gave some to her husband when he was with her, and he began eating it. So, although they were instructed not to, Adam and Eve disobeyed Jehovah and ate from that tree. And there was a grave consequence to that decision. Let's continue on in Genesis chapter 3. We'll go to verses 22 and we'll read through 24. It's Genesis 3:22. Jehovah God then said, "Here the man has become like one of us in knowing good and bad. Now in order that he may not put out his hand out and take fruit also from the tree of life, and eat and live forever." With that, Jehovah God expelled him from the Garden of Eden to cultivate the ground from which he had been taken. So he drove the man out, and he posted at the east of the Garden of Eden the cherubs, and the flaming blade of a sword that was turning continuously to guard the way to the tree of life. Notice in verse 22 that sentence ends with a dash. That's quite unusual in the Bible. That shows how swiftly Jehovah acted in expelling them from the Garden of Eden and cutting them off. Adam and Eve were disloyal. As a result, they were expelled from the Garden of Eden. Cherubs were put in place to guard the gate, preventing them from ever returning. So does that mean Jehovah's purpose for the earth was ruined, and that's that? Well, no. Just because Adam and Eve failed to be obedient does not mean Jehovah's purpose for the earth ended then and there. Well, how can we be sure of that? Using the natural water cycle as an illustration, Jehovah explains that for us, that his promises are inevitable. We can see that in Isaiah 55. If you turn there with me, we'll read Isaiah 55, we'll read verses 10 and 11. "For just as the rain and the snow pour down from heaven, and do not return there until they saturate the earth, making it produce and sprout, giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so my word that goes out of my mouth will be. It will not return to me without results, but it will certainly accomplish whatever is my delight, and it will have sure success in what I send it to do." So Jehovah's word always returns to him with results. Just like no doubt we will get rain, and we know in Buffalo it's inevitable, we will get snow. Jehovah's divine purpose for the earth will be accomplished. But once Adam and Eve were no longer perfect, they passed imperfection onto their offspring. It was not long before mankind started to abuse and ruin the earth. Since their rebellion, humans have polluted the earth morally, physically, and spiritually. The theme of this talk is ruining the earth brings divine retribution. So what exactly is retribution? It means deserved or just punishment proportionate to the crime. In the scriptures, we have several examples of divine retribution, showing how Jehovah responds when humans abuse the beautiful world he created for us. Today we're going to examine two instances of divine retribution. First, we'll discuss Noah's flood. It didn't take long, just a little over 1,600 years of mankind's self-rule before the earth was so polluted with violence that Jehovah had to intervene. In Noah's day, rebellious angels left their assigned place in heaven to come to earth to have relations with women. These women had half human, half angel, known as Nephilim. The word Nephilim means fellers, as in one who causes others to fall through violent acts. These Nephilim were interested in their own fame and glory. They were like superheroes of their day. Many idolized them, and they caused many to fall. Here in the picture, we see one of the Nephilim, two boys cheering him on as he flips over a vendor's cart in the market. Their negative influence was so pervasive on mankind that Jehovah deemed it necessary to take action. Let's read Jehovah's words to Noah in Genesis 6:13. That's Genesis 6:13. After that, God said to Noah, I have decided to put an end to all flesh, because the earth is full of violence on account of them. So I am bringing them to ruin together with the earth. And also we can read verses 5 through 8. That's Genesis 6:5. Consequently, Jehovah saw that man's wickedness was great on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only bad all the time. Jehovah regretted that he had made men on the earth, and his heart was saddened. So Jehovah said, I am going to wipe men whom I have created off the surface of the ground, man together with domestic animals, creeping animals, and flying creatures of the heavens, for I regret that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of Jehovah. So those that were ruining the earth faced Jehovah's divine retribution, and they were destroyed during the flood. Jehovah said he would wipe them off the surface of the ground, and he did. But remember, retribution means deserved punishment. So there were a few, Noah and his family, that were found faithful and found favor in the eyes of Jehovah, and they were not destroyed. A second biblical example of divine retribution is that of Sodom and Gomorrah. About 450 years after the flood, the earth had again become polluted with violent, morally corrupt, and wicked people. Jude references this in Jude verse 7. If you turn there with me, that's Jude, and we'll read verse 7. In the same manner, Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities around them gave themselves over to gross sexual immorality and pursued unnatural fleshly desires. They are placed before us as a warning example by undergoing the judicial punishment of everlasting fire. So Jehovah had sent angels to inspect the situation there, and as a result of the deplorable conduct in Sodom and Gomorrah, Jehovah destroyed those cities with a rain of fire and sulfur. Jehovah called the sins of Sodom and Gomorrah heavy. So therefore the punishment they received was deserved and proportionate to the crimes they had committed against God. But God did not destroy Lot, and his daughters because they were righteous. So these two examples establish a pattern for us. Jehovah will not tolerate those who ruin the earth indefinitely, and he will hold them accountable, and they will be destroyed. However, Jehovah does not destroy the righteous. He knows how to deliver people of godly devotion out of trial, like he did with Noah and Lot. So how does this pattern of divine retribution apply to us today? If we think back to the Garden of Eden, Jehovah told Adam and Eve to subdue or take care of the earth. But is that what we have been doing? We're supposed to be protecting and maintaining the earth. Instead, the earth needs protection from humans who have been destroying it. Man has threatened to make the earth uninhabitable. We have disrupted Jehovah's design and the delicate balance of nature, which has caused immense damage. We might think certain man-made advancements as improvements, or things that make our lives much easier. But flushable toilets, aerosol cans, travel by plane and car, plastic bags, and now, even worse, plastic straws, just to name a few, are polluting the earth. These discoveries or inventions have definitely changed the way humans live, but is it necessarily in a positive way? These advancements have both positive and negative effects. And the negative effects of some of these inventions are destroying the earth. Let's discuss a few examples. What about forest fires? It seems we can't just go a few months without hearing of another massive, out-of-control fire. In 2007, forest fires in Chile ravaged and burned a total of 1.2 million acres. That was the worst fire in Chile's history. In the same year, Portugal suffered its worst fire in history, killing over 100 people and destroying 1.3 million acres of land. That's about the size of Erie and Niagara County combined. At one point, 523 different fires were burning across Portugal. As of a few weeks ago, there were 17 wildfires burning in California simultaneously. You can see a few of these biggest ones on the map. They are down near San Diego and some way up in Northern California as well. The Kincaid fire in Northern California spread to twice the size of San Francisco. Most of these fires are caused directly or indirectly by humans. The fire that broke out in California's wine country on October 23rd of this year was caused by a high voltage power line that PG&E, the company PG&E, admitted to starting that fire. The governor of California attributed that to years and years of the company's greed. What about global warming and climate change? That's a hot topic for debate recently. Pollution has caused the Earth's temperature to increase, and as a result, glaciers are melting at an increasingly rapid rate. In 2007, melting icebergs resulted in the opening of the Northwest Passage. For the first time in history, ships could pass through it without the need of an icebreaker. So now ships could travel from Europe through North America to Asia without having to travel down to the Panama Canal. So you would think the first companies to take advantage of that would be shipping companies, right? No, it wasn't. It was oil companies. They saw this as a new way to expand their drilling in that part of the earth, showing again greed. What about air pollution? Well, humans are polluting the earth through land and air travel, oil refineries, coal refineries, and many other forms of manufacturing. According to the World Health Organization, in 2016, 92% of the world's population were living in places where air quality guidelines were not met. If we look at the world map here, only the green areas were considered to have healthy air quality levels. Typically, the more densely populated an area, the worse the air quality is. In 2017, the air quality in India's capital, New Delhi, was so bad, breathing the air for one day was equivalent to smoking 44 cigarettes. Air quality is the leading environmental threat to public health. So it's no wonder that in 2016, 4.2 million premature deaths were linked to air pollution. In some cities, people are advised to stay indoors on days when air quality is dangerously poor. So humans have made significant advancement in the world and the lives of those in it. But is it genuine progress when people can travel into space, but they can't breathe the air? Is it progress when people can communicate across the world in seconds, but we can't drink the water? Is it progress when Google can answer almost any question imaginable, but some people can't afford food for their next meal? Isaiah sums up what's been happening in the earth. Isaiah chapter 24. Isaiah 24, we'll start reading at verse 5. The land has been polluted by its inhabitants, for they have bypassed the laws, changed the regulation, and broken the lasting covenant. That is why the curse devours the land, and those inhabiting it are held guilty. So man truly is guilty of polluting the earth. Immense physical damage has been done. And just like that in Noah and Lot's days, man has ruined the earth with immorality and violence. That is why Jeremiah wrote, "It does not belong to earthly man even to direct his step." Humans trying to rule have only made things progressively worse. The earth has been so abused by man, many cause us to wonder, have humans just gone too far? Is the earth beyond repair? To some, it may seem that way. Humans have just started to acknowledge the way we treat the earth has to change quickly and drastically if the earth is going to survive. If left up to humans, this transformation is not even attainable. But Jehovah God promises to save the earth from ungrateful humans. Well, what will he do? Peter recalls how Jehovah intervened in the past in 2 Peter. If you turn there with me, it's 2 Peter chapter 2. We'll start reading at verse 4. 2 Peter 2:4. Certainly, God did not refrain from punishing the angels who sinned, but threw them into Tartarus, putting them in chains of dense darkness to be reserved for judgment. And he did not refrain from punishing an ancient world, but kept Noah, a preacher of righteousness, safe with 7 others, when he brought a flood upon a world of ungodly people. And by reducing the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah to ashes, he condemned them, setting a pattern for ungodly people of things to come. And he rescued righteous Lot, who was greatly distressed by the brazen conduct of the lawless people. We can skip down to verse 9. So then Jehovah knows how to rescue people of godly devotion out of trial, but to reserve unrighteous people to be destroyed on the day of judgment. So, as we have discussed, Jehovah will not hold back from punishing those deserving of it. They will be held accountable. But just like that in the days of Noah and Lot, he will rescue people of godly devotion. For a little while longer, Jehovah is allowing humans to rule themselves. The issue of divine sovereignty, or who has the right to rule, was raised in the Garden of Eden. And since Jehovah is a just God, he is allowing time for humans to show whether or not they are capable of ruling themselves. After 6,000 years of human history, the evidence is fairly clear. Humans have failed. Remember the pattern our Bible accounts have established. We can turn to Revelation 11:18. That's Revelation 11, verse 18. But the nations became wrathful, and your own wrath came, and the appointed time came for the dead to be judged, and to reward your slaves the prophets, and the holy ones, and those fearing your name, the small and the great, and to bring to ruin those ruining the earth. So Jehovah will not let humans destroy the earth beyond repair. Ruining the earth will bring divine retribution. So although this has not happened yet, we can have confidence from reviewing past examples that Jehovah will take action. So once Jehovah has addressed the root cause of the issue, eliminating the wicked and Satan the devil, he can focus on restoring the earth. Jehovah's purpose for the earth was not ruined. All the promises of a perfect life on earth, where humans will live forever in paradise conditions, will still be fulfilled. Remember that mansion we inherited at the beginning of this talk? Remember how dilapidated it was? Well, in 2009, it was listed as one of the most endangered historic sites. Some may have thought, just tear it down, bulldoze it. But in 2016, the Selma Mansion was purchased by Sharon Burt and Scott Miller. First, they stabilized the structure, and then they began to restore the mansion to its former glory. The project took more than 2 years, over $2 million, and many, many man-hours. And this is what it looks like today. It's just beautiful. Similarly, the earth will be restored to its former glory, but not as a result of man's efforts. No, much more is required. Jehovah must intervene, just like he did in the days of Noah and Lot. We may not have the knowledge, power, or insight to restore the earth, but Jehovah does. So what will life be like once Jehovah does intervene? Let's read that in Isaiah chapter 11. That's Isaiah chapter 11. We'll start reading at verse 6. The wolf will reside for a while with the lamb, and with the young goat the leopard will lie down, and the calf and the lion and the fattened animal will all be together, and a little boy will lead them. The cow and the bear will feed together, and their young will lie down together. The lion will eat straw like the bull. The nursing child will play over the lair of a cobra, and a weaned child will put his hand over the den of a poisonous snake. They will not cause any harm or any ruin in all my holy mountain, because the earth will certainly be filled with the knowledge of Jehovah as the waters cover the sea. Doesn't that sound like a vast improvement from what we see the world like today? We will see this complete fulfillment of this prophecy in the near future. Men, women, children, all will be safe and secure wherever they go on the earth. No creature, whether human or animal, will pose any threat. Imagine a time when this entire planet will be your home, where you can swim in the rivers, lakes, seas, climb any mountain range imaginable, travel anywhere you want in complete safety, day or night. The scriptures don't reveal every detail of what life was like in Eden or what it will be like in the paradise. But the more we study the scriptures and learn about Jehovah and his qualities, the better we become at visualizing what paradise will be like in the near future. We need to take time now to learn about God's purpose for the earth, build our faith that Jehovah will act, and what it requires on our part to be recognized as people of godly devotion like Noah and Lot. Those who learn God's standards and live by them now have the prospect of living forever on this earth, when life will be just as it should be, just as it should have been. The whole earth will be restored to a peaceful paradise, according to God's original purpose. Humans will be able to live in a world free from moral pollution, spiritual pollution, and physical pollution. And we'll see the earth transformed from this into this. As the psalmist wrote, the righteous will possess the earth, and they will live forever on it. Thank you.
Radnicki. Appreciate all your efforts on behalf of the congregation today. It was nice to be together for that discussion. I'd like to invite everyone back next week. We've got a discussion from Brother Allen on the rewards and responsibilities of parenthood. You're all invited back for that, as well as to stay for our Watchtower discussion. Let's bring up Brother Fisher, and he'll get started on that.
Well, Brother Radnicki gave us a great vision of the near future. Those pictures and visualizing in our mind. Are we pretty close? Are you anxious to see that? Are we pretty close? Convincing evidence helps us to see that we are. So what should be our urgency right now? What does our God Jehovah expect of us? That's what this Watchtower lesson we're going to discuss is on. But before we do that, let's ask all to stand. We're going to sing Song 58, taken from Luke 10:6, Searching for Friends of Peace. Song 58. Let's sing that together.